It's on you.
Hello, and welcome to this podcast. Today we're joined, it's myself, Jobs Tea and Biscuit Connoisseur, otherwise known as Paul Charles of Forward Roll, and the Mayor.
Hi.
Hi. We're going to be talking about a post that Joe, or the Mayor, has put up on LinkedIn, simply about, cybersecurity recruitment, some of the problems that are in it. Maybe hopefully have some solutions as well.
Sure.
To put to everyone. So, do you want to kick off, Joe?
Yeah, just really quick. Just welcome everybody here to the channel. Thank you for having me as well. And then as people filter in, if we can just make sure that we keep all the microphones on mute except for myself and Paul for those who are in the channel. And then at the end, if we have some time, we can probably do some offline Q&A as well to talk. So, but other than that, thank you for having me, and I'm all set.
Sorry it didn't work on Twitch, guys. We had a major lag where there was about a minute's difference between us talking. So that's why we're not on Twitch. We're actually on Discord today.
Yeah.
To start with your first point, we just go down the points, really.
Sure.
And I know a lot of people who are joining us are either looking for work in cyber or have been quite recently. So this should actually strike a chord with them.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe a few of them are actually in the position where they're actually looking at hiring themselves. So we might have some solutions for them, that they can use and hopefully be better at hiring. So,
it's, obviously, the world itself is kind of still on fire a bit from the pandemic, and we're still reeling from massive layoffs and unemployment to a bludgeoning workforce need for many professions and fields. Some fields kind of survived better than others, in information technology, the IT sect of work seem to really the world doesn't the IT world doesn't stop spinning because the rest of the world did, and kind of live in that interconnected world, but we still face this massive hiring challenge that's 100% organic. This isn't an issue with shortage of employees or anything else. It's an organic issue.
I think the main problem, and I think you'll agree on me with this, is it's not that they lack the people. It's their search criteria is too focused on finding the perfect person every single time. Not everyone will have all of the skills you want, and a lot of companies want to hold out until they find that person. And they're just asking for a list of requirements that they give to HR, who then try and find that without telling them, actually, it doesn't matter if they've not got OSCP. It's just a nice to have. And things like that. And I think that's what's limiting a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big part of it. And then additionally, just unreasonable expectations. But like you said, we're looking for unicorns or that diamond in the rough. And it's a systemic issue, or kind of this perfect storm of disaster that we're in. So we're looking for that perfect candidate. And why are we looking for that perfect candidate? Well, because that saves us money in the long run. We don't have to spend as much time and effort training that person. Getting that perfect person who can come in and hit the ground running, which, as you talked about, skills translation and all kinds of different things play into this. Where do you need CISSP? Do you need CREST for you folks across the pond? Do you need OSCP or a GPEN for some of these positions? Do you need 10 years experience? And that's really where do
you need a high school diploma? Right. It's all.
And so that list is 5 points, but honestly, all those things just run into each other, and it's just a systemic issue with a lot of issue that just isn't being addressed. There is no shortage of talent. there's just a shortage of people willing to take a chance on that talent and say, hey, this person has the qualities that we're looking for. They have the soft skills, they have the technical acumen. They just don't have the experience in years that we're looking for. Why shouldn't we take a chance on that guy? And it's because of bullet point one. You're not talking to the person who's making that decision. You're talking to HR. You're talking to somebody who is grading you on a set of metrics that's standard. And
yeah, and in HR's defense, often they are just given those metrics that the line manager goes to them and say, right, I need a pen tester. Here's a list of requirements. Now, HR doesn't understand what all of these requirements are. They're not trained to do that. HR's job is to run payroll, make sure everyone's happy in the company, personnel-wise. Their primary function isn't recruitment. It's a very small part of it. So they don't always understand what it is that this list, what's on this list that they've been handed. And that then creates the problem of, well, this is the list I've got. I've got to find everything on it. This is my shopping list, without knowing that actually, maybe this is equivalent to this cert, or you don't actually need it, or it's out of date. And that is part of the problem. The other problem I find is they might not get a JD from the line manager. So line manager might say to them, right, I need a pen tester. And HR are like, right, what do I need to find? So they'll go online and they'll find a job description from another company and pretty much copy paste that. And I've seen that a lot, where you're seeing the same requirements. That's why you're seeing CISSP on every job description, because it's copy pasted from one where they required CISSP. And that is one of the major problems I'm seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the end, you don't end up talking to that person who understands the lingo. You're not talking to that individual who understands the position. You're talking to HR, whose primary task has historically always been compensation benefits. Making sure that the hiring process is legal, which to me, coming from management, coming from the politics side, and as a mayor and as kind of the chief hiring authority, understanding that there is purpose for them in the hiring pathway. You want to make sure that somebody within your organization is trained and understands the law when it comes to equal rights. We're talking about EEO, equal opportunity, and all of these. The plethora of laws here in the U.S. or in the U.K. I mean, a lot of those laws are similar. You want to have people who understand that lingo. So when it comes to application management, that's where I think HR really needs to concentrate, making sure that those applications that are coming in, that the hiring process is fair. But in doing so, it's become the hiring process is fair because we're just going to grade people. And you don't end up talking to the individual typically who's going to say, hey, I know what this person means when they say I've built out this lab environment, or hey, I've taken these exams that may or may not be in the JD, like you said. So you end up never being able to talk to or appeal to somebody who actually understands what the heck you're talking about. Again, it's systemic. Should the answer be just keep doing what we're doing? No. If HR is going to be provided that task to carry out, then train HR to understand what those concepts are. There's nothing.
Or at least, if you haven't got time to train them, at least tell them, right, this is my shopping list. Now, if that would be the ideal person, just tell them this is the ideal person. This is my shopping list. However, if they only have these requirements, and try and keep it to 2 or 3. Obviously, the more senior the position, the harder that will be. But try and keep the actual set in stone, we need these requirements. Try and keep them as flexible as possible, because, let's say you're looking for someone with 3 years experience. Well, someone with a year's experience might be able to do the job. So, and it's like, you just tell HR that if they've got everything else, but they've only got a year, just send them to me anyway. I'll interview them, and we'll see if they're good enough.
Well, and I interviewed with a company last July, and I went through HR. I had a brief interview with, kind of the security manager or whatever, and then I was handed a virtual machine and said, hack this and get back to us. When we're on the kind of the offensive pen testing side, I don't see the issue with an organization building out something that's quasi realistic, and using that as kind of an assessor, in addition to your application and your resume credentialing.
Mm.
You've got a year of experience, you've got this certification, you've got that certification, but using some amount of like a tangible assessment as well internally, to try to internalize the value of that individual. You build out a box, that's going to be, say medium difficulty. You've gone through, testing and building it and understanding, some of the concepts that you want to assess that applicant on. Send them that VM. Installing a virtual machine itself can be difficult. You'll weed people out with that because they're going to be in over their head. They're talking. They might talk a big game about, hey, I can actually do this, but in the end, they can't even install a VM. You've essentially weeded out that person. But then you start getting to people who understand how to install it. Okay, now they've installed it. Now they understand how to scan it. Okay, what are they finding? You can, start to, identify the individuals who talk a good game, so to speak, but really can't do the job. And you can build out a base of metrics on that as well. And you can require a written report. Okay, you've done this, you've done this challenge. You've written a report. You can assess their writing ability then, and see how good they are, and with technical communication. If that's somebody who you can train as an organization to write, good, valid reports for clients, or if their writing abilities are really bad, maybe provide that individual some feedback to say, hey, you hacked it well, you found all the keys, but you really need to work on your writing.
Yeah.
So
basics.
In the end, I think that, again, HR does play a role, but they shouldn't be the initial hiring authority. They shouldn't be the initial yay or nay passage decision, in my opinion, unless that individual is trained to understand the job. I'm not opposed to sending HR to take Security Plus if they're hiring for blue team positions. Why shouldn't that individual making that hiring decision up front understand the job? Or if you're on the offensive side, send them to take EJPT or something simple. Send them through the PTS course. It's free. At that point, it's just time. If they're going to hire,
or even CH, I mean, anything. I know it's a multiple choice questionnaire, but it gives you the jargon, doesn't it?
Yeah, it being able to understand what the purpose of that job is and what's kind of expected of it. How can you ask that of people if you can't ask it of yourself? And I think it really does a disservice to the organization. And I think that's kind of where the look has not been. It's always been on, well, we're not really here for the good of the applicant. We're here for the good of the organization. Okay, great. How many good applicants are you losing because you're so worried about yourselves and not being able to be a welcoming employer that's willing to hire people or give them, a fair assessment of who they are.
Chance. And this is a conversation I had about 2 weeks ago. So I spoke to Tom Williams, who used to be a recruiter internally. So he used to hire pen testers for a company called Context, which is now part of Accenture. And the way they got around this was by using Hack the Box. And I don't know if you're familiar with like the Fortress on there. So they set up a fortress on Hack the Box. So basically, if you guys can hack the fortress, break into it and get all the way through, they will guarantee you an interview. Now, that could be a solution to, some of the problems we've just discussed about HR not understanding, diversity, etc. Because when you're going through the fortress, no one knows your name. They don't know where you are, etc. So, and they guarantee an interview afterwards. And he said they've made some hires they would never have made because of that.
So I like the idea of Fortress. I don't like that you're held to have to get a certain rank on Hack the Box to access those networks. That's basically saying, hey, you've got to dig in. And in the end, it's up to the employer to take that opportunity to say, yes, this is what we want for our applicants. But I'll tell you, the requirement to have to go grind out guru or hacker rank on Hack the Box.
You don't have to do that, do you? I think you can just attempt the fortress.
You absolutely have to qualify for them.
Okay.
Let's pull that up really
But,
quick. I was looking at it yesterday. There was a new one that popped up for another company, and I've just curious, out of complete curiosity, just looked at it. Um, Here, we're gonna switch off really quick so that you guys aren't seeing my login. Although you might be able to see that, I'm not sure. Yeah, so let's labs, fortresses. Yeah, so you have to unlock it after reaching hacker rank, or you have to unlock it after reaching
okay.
group. For Synactives, they put one up. You have to have. They're all hacker rank.
Or
Um,
hacker.
so, to me,
Medium level boxes. Okay.
somebody who doesn't enjoy Hack the Box or spend really any time on that platform, um,
Hmm.
and again, in the end, it's up to the company, and not every applicant is going to fit well with an organization, but they have to go grind that out on Hack the Box just to get access to it to have a chance. Um, to me, I think there's better ways to do it, but if they're finding qualified applicants they didn't know about otherwise, and it's providing an additional chance for people who don't go down that traditional pathway of help desk to pulling cable to systems admin to a SOC analyst, etc., then yeah, it's a heck of an opportunity if your pathway and what you enjoy is something like Hackbox. So I think it's a great idea. For me, I wish there was slightly different implementation, but
In regards to like, you got to grind it. Maybe if companies are hiring enough people, create their own version of that, their own version of a fortress where, instead of grinding through Hack the Box, you just apply online. If you can get through it, great. We'll interview you.
and there are companies that do that. Like I said, I applied for one last
Yep.
July, and they sent me a small VM. I still have the VM. I mean, I learned stuff from doing that challenge,
Hmm.
and I've built things for other labs based on some of the stuff I saw in that challenge. So um, I think that those are objective assessments. Those are ways that you can
Yeah.
test somebody beyond uh, the one-page resume and whatever they can provide with an application for previous experience in college and job experience. I think that objective assessments in this field specifically, on the pen testing side, are a really good way to go.
Hmm.
As long as they don't turn into kind of gamified capture the flags where you're throwing in a bunch of stuff that's just not relevant to the position, and those exist. You start
Yeah.
throwing in a lot of these encryption challenges and different things like that. You may never see that in your whole career, which, what's the point of assessing at that point? So, but yeah, HR.
It went on a tangent then. Yeah, HR. I mean, the takeaway from it really is if you give HR like the job to find someone, educate them if you can. So provide them with training. If you don't have the time or resources to provide them with training, at least give them some idea. Like briefly, it takes you 10 minutes to say, right, this is the JD, this is my shopping list. If they don't have this, if they don't have that, it's not a big deal. I can live without it. These are the key requirements, and just train them on that as a minimum.
Yep.
I'd say.
Yeah, set
Um,
those in stone requirements. The basic ones.
yeah,
We want this certificate specifically will accept these other ones because they're equitable, and we would like to have a college degree or something, or a year of experience, or
yeah,
but we need to be okay with the or, and that's where these things fail at. Is that or is not really a part of the process. There's this line drawn in the sand that says it's this way or no way, and that covers a lot of other issues here in my bullet points. But we need to be open to those alternatives too, and we don't have that right now.
no, it will come. I think it's starting to happen in certain companies, and it will come.
Yeah, I think so too. It's like you said, it's going to take time, and it takes um, people seeing and understanding things that are
Yeah,
happening and being introduced to alternatives. You know,
It's like IT was about 20 years ago. Think about it, because it used to be you hire the IT guy, and it was just hire the IT guy who did everything.
Yep.
Sysadmin, IT help desk, every bit of development, anything that was IT, one guy did that. And now they're realizing, actually, no, you can't do that. You've got to have help desk. You've got to have, if you need to build a program, you've got to have a developer to do it properly. And I think we're going to see the same thing, but it will take time, unfortunately, for these things to mature, because infosec's still relatively new, if you think about it.
No, it absolutely
The
is.
grand scheme.
Yeah, it's new, and the people who are in career today are exactly like you said. They were kind of paving the way. There was no pathway. There was no, hey, what should we do here? How do we set this up? It was a lot of figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
And
I mean, even the past few years, I've seen so much new stuff come out to help people get into infosec, and I've seen a lot of effort from the companies and stuff.
well, I think
Is it enough yet? Not yet, but it's getting there.
Well, I think there's enough people starting to, raise a stink, and
Yeah.
I use a lot of analogies. There's enough people starting to raise a stink, not only from the jobless, the people trying to break in unsuccessfully. There's some progressive individuals within the field who are saying, "Hey, this is really an issue. Look at what we're missing out on." And from a business perspective, if you're not fostering diversity, and that's not just an IT thing. That we're talking about race equity and race diversity. We're talking about gender diversity and gender equity and equality, and we're talking about all kinds of different diversity. If we're not open to different people with different talents and different skills, different mindsets and different life stories and life paths, our organizations can't grow. They can't benefit because we just have this all, just kind of one size fits all mentality. This, we all look the same, we all act the same, we all have the same knowledge and the same, expertise and education. Well, that's great, but what does that bring to the picture in the grand scheme of things? How do you expand your boundaries if your boundaries are closed off? So, we'll pick on OSCP because it's my favorite. If all of your job applicants, that's the baseline. Baselines are great, but if that's what everybody has, how can you expect anyone to understand other things or to bring differing views or other perspectives? And that's where the challenge is. Perspective. Our applicants are coming in with the same requirements, which again, baselines are good. It gives you that baseline, hey, this is what we expect from you. But if that's it, and you're not open to, hey, I learned how to do this somewhere else. I learned how, this is something I learned that isn't taught in the other course or in the other experience. You miss out on that person's perspective and ability for your organization to maybe find something that was far better. Maybe a tool that they use somewhere else is far better than what everybody else learned over here. Programming languages are a great example. If people were closed off to, hey, we've really got to stick with one thing, languages like Rust, which is hot right now, wouldn't be a thing. They wouldn't exist. But developers and development has been going on for a while, and I think that kind of understanding of Java and C+ being the only things around has quickly fallen by the wayside and opened up to a lot of different opportunities. And now you're seeing Python starting to get ran over by Rust, and here before too long, Rust will get run over by something else. But if we weren't open to those changes and the benefits of other things, we would have no programming language diversity. We'd be stuck with the same few things.
Let's face it. I mean, infosec, every day there's new exploits, there's new ways of attacking. The criminals are getting smarter or dumber, depending on how you look at it.
Well, it's not the smart
but they're getting new tools. Yeah. But they're getting more and more tools. That their armory grows daily, doesn't it? It's not static at all. You need to counter that.
I just posted one today, actually, a 4-year-old exploit that I played around with. I kind of learned about it last night and wrote an article on today. And the only way we know these things is by sharing that knowledge and making it known for each other. We're up against unbeatable odds sometimes, like you said. other nations, other nations on the planet
Yep.
are fully invested in taking down the Western civilization, so to speak.
And not just that. I mean, the West is also. I mean, the
we're
Brits are
doing it
hacking
too.
the Americans. The Americans are hacking the Brits. It's not. It's
we're
not
doing
limited
it
to that.
but that's where we're at is,
Yeah.
and if we aren't open to saying, hey, maybe this guy or gal knows what they're talking about just because they don't have this piece of paper, or they don't have 6 years experience. Look, the best pen tester I know has failed OSCP, and it's because he's a pen tester. He's not a capture the flag. He failed it, and there isn't a thing I couldn't go to him to and ask him about pen testing that I know he couldn't answer. He can do it all. He's just great at what he does. So
Yeah.
these are the kind of things that we risk missing when we're so closed-minded or we're so stuck on one set of standards or one single baseline. And it's not a detriment. It's a detriment to those individuals who can't find employment. But in the end, it's the industry and its companies and clients and organizations that miss out on improvement.
It's hugely helpful for us. So from a recruitment perspective, I know that someone with OSCP is going to have some interest in hacking.
Sure.
So if you ask me to find a pen tester, it's going to be one of the first things I look for because it's easy to find. It's fair. Most people with OSCP put it on their profile. Some of them even do a whole post about it, don't they? That I passed OSCP, and they'll post their certificate and everything and get a bunch of likes for it. So, those people are very easy to find in an industry where, well, let's face it, people don't want to be found half the time. A lot of them can be very secretive.
It's easy to translate skills when you look for 1 4-letter word. And say, hey, they fit the bill simply because of this. So as your recruiter, like you said, going to type out all the keywords, ethical hacking, network pen testing, and all these things that if I was to search for a new job on LinkedIn, it's going to say, you fit 6 of 10 skills. Your typical recruiter's not doing that. They're going up to the search bar, they're searching OSCP, they're searching CISSP or whatever that JD requires, and going for those easy wins. So you're absolutely right that it makes it easy.
I think that's where the drive is. It makes it easy. And humans, we are creatures that take the path of least resistance whenever we can. That's just who we are. We're all lazy by nature in some ways.
No, absolutely. But that continues to just compound upon the issue that, and by doing that, you could search OSCP, and we could look up here right now. I don't know how this works for us. Here's a whole bunch of them, right? OSCP. The more people have this certificate, the less value it holds. So then people have to start looking for other things, and it's just basic economics. Sure, you might value it personally, and I've had this argument before, and I've done those tweets before where the ones the OSCP's value is diminishing because more and more people earn it. That's just the way things are. If there was more 67 Mustangs around in the world, the cost of 67 Mustangs would go down. Just
capitalism, isn't it? Supply and demand.
Supply and demand. So as the supply of a single certification continues to increase, the demand falls down because it doesn't set you apart anymore. The more people have it, the less that that light shines on that individual who holds it. So that's why that diversity with your education and training really starts to play such an important part in all of this, is because you have to start looking for other things that set you apart. And you have to be open to those things that make a candidate stand out. Do they have a master's degree? Do they have CISSP, which is super easy to pick on? Do they have CEH or whatever, or eLearn certificates? But the issue is we still hone in on that one stupid thing.
The other issue you'd have with diversity, I guess, is if you get everyone to have the same training, the same certs, exactly, they're basically the same robot in a way. They'll spot the same things when they do their pen test or they're on their SOC. They'll spot the same things. It's the things they don't spot you want to be careful of.
Yeah,
And if you have the same training, they won't spot different things or spot the same things.
exactly. And that's where, when I talk about training diversity with people, that's exactly where my point goes. If you miss out on accepting somebody who has seen something different, then
Yeah.
you don't know that that something different may or may not exist. And, that's, again, that's an organizational risk.
Yeah.
And, that, that is something you can't provide value to with your clients or with your company. And one of the things that just honestly chaps me really bad is this is a very much a foot in the door industry. Once you've gotten your foot in there, you're in, you're safe. You
Yep.
can assume as long as you don't screw something up really bad and make national news or, or a newspaper, that you're
Yeah.
probably going
After 6 months, 6 months is it's a golden 6 months. After
yeah,
that, you'll have every recruiter and his dog will
yeah.
be trying to hound you to give you a job.
But
That's just a fact.
so when I say this, it's because once you're footed in the door, the industry doesn't seem to care as much about what your training is anymore.
Mm.
They might allow you to, hey, what are you working on this week? Oh, well, I watched a John Strand video, or I tuned into Wild West Hacking Fest, or I caught some DEF CON. Okay, that's fine. Um, the issue is they're not accepting some of these equal training opportunities before you've gotten in the door. So you could watch a John Strand video and learn a whole bunch about insert concept here, but nobody is considering that as valuable or of much value because again, it doesn't meet that that JD. It doesn't meet that bullet requirement or that baseline understanding. So a lot of these continuing ed ideas are things that you tune into once you've gotten your position, um, are great once you've gotten there. The shame
Mm.
is they're not really accepted or considered with individuals prior to getting that interview, prior to getting that foot in the door, or getting that hiring offer come into them. We need to do better about being open to some of these things, to some of these opportunities. Phil Wiley is doing an Azure course right now through INE. You could list that on your resume, but nobody's going to pay attention to that. Azure training's hard to come by when it comes to pen testing. It just doesn't exist. Um,
Mm.
but if you were to list that and say, I went through a 3-day INE Azure hacking boot camp, you as a hiring authority, are you going to care about that? No,
Nope.
probably not. You're going to glaze over it, which is unfortunate. These are things that the training just doesn't exist. It's just not there yet. So, um, but once you're in the job, you're going to be told to go search these things out and learn them. So that to me is where the other part of the training diversity is a big issue. Is we're not open to those training opportunities when it comes to hiring like we are once you're already employed. And we really need to kind of do some soul searching on that.
I think there's one more point which isn't on your 5 bullet points, but I've talked about it, and I know you've talked about it as well. So just briefly, networking,
Yeah, that's a good
leveraging
one.
your own network. That I think this is a huge point as well. So let's say you've done the OSCP, you're struggling to get work, you've done a bunch of things on Hack the Box, Try Hack Me, you've got your own labs, you've got a GitHub, you're doing all the right things really. And yeah, let's even say go even further. You've got a background, you've done 5 years in sysadmin, so you'd be solid on your networking and stuff like that. But you can't find work now. A really good way to get work is just contacting a bunch of CISOs and CTOs in your area. I think
Yeah.
that's something that a lot of people don't do.
So I think that it's a great idea. If you've been in the field, like you said, you've come up, you've done the grind, you've made your way into an SA role or something. You should have some amount of a professional network already developed. You're gonna know some of the people in the field, some of the movers and the shakers. Whether it's you work at a hospital and you've had a couple of CTOs and one of them has moved on somewhere else locally. You have a connection there because you worked in or a direct report likely to that individual, or close to a direct report. Maybe they were one line up. Um, so networking is absolutely vital, and I mean I speak about it all the time because that's the only reason I'm really employed. Um, I didn't have the 5 years experience. I just had everything else, right? And I was still failing.
Yeah.
But what I did that most people don't, because it does take a lot of time and effort and a lot of just kind of mental energy, is to make it so people can't ignore you. So I started streaming. I started, LinkedIn posts, and I started building lab environments. I started tweeting and all these different things that just kind of put you out there and made it so that I could no longer be ignored because that's what was happening.
Yeah.
I started helping educate people, and I was doing teaching assistant on Udemy. And I don't recommend everybody go down that path of what I was doing, but pick one or two things out that can make a difference. So, you bring up contact your local CISOs and ISOs. That's great. Uh, in this digital remote world we're working in, do the same thing, but do it with a little bit of thought. So, yesterday I up here, if I'd click network, I had 285 connection requests. 4 of them had a message. 3 of them were
Yeah.
something about them wanting to help themselves. I want to follow you so I can learn from you, which is fine. You're showing initiative to want to better yourself. I'm not going to remember any of you. None of you are going to stick in my mind or my memory. You have not made an impact. And that's where we need to start talking more. But when we're talking about, you know, everything that you talk about. You've done the GitHub, you're doing the blogging and all these things, but is it making an impact? And the answer is probably not. Some of those things, GitHubs and blogs are great to include on your resume, uh, so that a prospective employer can look at your ability to write, your ability to maybe code or develop, etc. But for the majority of us, our GitHubs aren't being regularly traversed, being seen by people. Those folks who are using it or copying and pasting your code for something else are likely never going to remember your name. They're there for a tool, and you wrote it and it works decently. So, like my threader. So
Yeah.
GitHubs work only so much when on the front end when it comes to trying to be identified. It's on the back end stuff. People, decision makers being able to see your coding when you apply for a job. Same thing with a blog. Unless you're an exceptional writer or you're someone like IPSec who is churning out guides that are well respected and identified in the infosec community, it's likely that the majority of your write-ups and guides are going to have minimal effect on your prospects on the front end of having somebody see you and saying, hey, I really like this guy and what he's doing, maybe I should give him a call. You're probably not making the impact on the network side. Well, what those things do is, again, provide some amount of insight into how you write and how you do your job. But we come back to LinkedIn now and we talk about these messages. If you're going to connect with somebody, and I have right here, please include a message if sending a connection request. This is on my profile, and I put it there on purpose because I want people to try to make an impact. I want people to communicate with me and show me some amount of initiative to say, hey, I want to get to know who this guy is. I want to take advantage of him. I want to grow myself professionally on his shoulders and back, because that's what LinkedIn is, right? You're either there for yourself or you're there for somebody else. So send a message. Do a few minutes of research on who Joe Helle is, or who you are, Paul, or Naomi Buckwalter, or the Cyber Mentor, or whoever. Do a few minutes of research on that person and send a well thought out 2 or 3 sentence message asking to connect and why. Not just I want to grow.
You don't even have to use text as well. You can actually send voice recordings.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever received some of those, but they can be quite effective.
Yeah, I've never received one. I know that the function is there, but so I've always told people I got.
Hi, Joe. This is your first voice recording received on LinkedIn. There we
if
go.
anybody's here and they want to make an impact, that's how you do it. I just got it. That's fun. But that's kind of goes along the impact way. My first step into making an impact was the Cyber Mentor. I sent him a message. I saw that he grew up 30 minutes from where I did, and I simply said, hey, we have something in common. I'm just going to go ahead and say, hey, that's pretty cool. I had no intention of ending up where I'm at today. I just thought it was pretty cool. But you never know when a message that's kind of well thought out shows something in common or that you've taken a few minutes to understand who that person is for before sending it, you don't understand what kind of impact that can make until you've done that amount of research, that amount of consideration, and sent it to them.
Yeah.
That started not only a professional relationship, but a friendship. Him and I are really good friends. Um, you never know where it's going to go. But I can tell you where the 284 of the messages I got yesterday went. Nowhere. I'll never remember those people, and it's not to be disrespectful. It's because they didn't take the time to be remembered. And when you're trying to build those networks and you're trying to connect with the movers and the shakers and the decision makers and the impact people in the field, you want to make an impact because they're all getting 200 or 300 connection requests a week or more. And if you want to be remembered, you have to make it so you can't be ignored. And I ignored the majority of you. And again, I don't mean that as a disrespect. I mean that as the truth. I don't have time to try to figure out who 285 of you are. It just isn't the way the world works. And it goes for job applications. That's why you send thank you letters, and that's why you said cover sheets to try to make sure that you're remembered among the pile or the stack of applications that come through. You want to give people a reason to not forget you.
Or you phone in. We always, so if I was to send a resume, and it's what I did for some of the stuff we've been doing for TCM Academy, if I send a resume or a CV, I will follow up with a phone call or a message to say, hey, sent a resume over. And, if you put it onto the candidate's perspective, hey, I've sent my resume over for this job. I just wanted to make sure you got it. You don't have to start doing an interview then and there. All you can say is just want to make sure you got it. It's not in your spam. And suddenly you're talking to that person. They might suddenly say, yeah, we've got it, but let's just talk about yourself. And suddenly, you're in an interview then and there.
Yeah.
From that little piece of initiative that you've done.
Yeah, you never know.
You've skipped the queue.
You never know when you're going to get forwarded to the person on the telephone who's going to be the person you talk to inevitably. And I can tell you that there are employers, to include myself when I was a mayor, when we would have people apply, we would make notes in their application file that said they called at this date and time to track that initiative, to track that connection, to see who actually wants the job and who's just trying to apply. We would track those contacts because it's important to know who's calling once a week to say, hey, is this job still available? When can I expect an interview? Is there anything else you need to know about me? Initiative goes a long way with everything, not just this, but if you show initiative and an interest and a genuine interest in being employed there, people are going to catch on. They're going to see you. They're going to understand, hey, maybe this guy or this gal's really, really interested in being here, whatever the job is. Maybe you have to stand out. This goes back to the OSCP and the baseline. It goes for everything. You have to find ways to stand out. And you have to find ways to make it so nobody can ignore you. And that is the best networking message I can give to anybody. I harp on it all the time. For the folks in the Discord that hang out with me, they know that message. They hear it all the time. Make it so you cannot be ignored. That's how I got my job. That's how I got my second job. It's how I got my internship with Heath.
This is true. This is true.
Sorry, we got to mute you guys. It's a two-way for now. We'll do some chat here in a minute once we're done. But it's you have to make it so you cannot be ignored, and not enough people are doing that.
Yeah, I get why, because it is sticking your head above the parapet. Because when you're, I know you took some flack when you were putting your tweets, your messages, you were doing some mentoring and training for other guys, and you took some flack for it. And yeah, you are sticking your head above the parapet. You are. And on the internet, where it's the Wild West, isn't it? The internet.
Yeah.
So I get why people would be put off by that. I'm lucky, and personally, I'm very thick-skinned, so I can take a lot of crap, basically, and just ignore it. But I know some people aren't.
Yeah, it can definitely be hard, and there's been times where I've been incredibly just taxed mentally, by where I just need to tap out. From Discord, I need to tap out from Twitter for a few days. I need to just disconnect from the world. It's tough, especially somebody like me who's very introverted, who's very doesn't want to be bothered, who oftentimes just wants to keep to himself. It can be really, really difficult to be that front runner, be that forward-facing person who's always available, who's always being seen, who's always there. But I'm also a pragmatist, and I'm not going to fail. I'm going to succeed however I have to. And so I did that, and it was a lot of hard work. And I don't recommend anybody doing it the way I did, because it was taxing mentally, physically, emotionally. It kicked my butt in many aspects, but I'm where I'm at now. And was it worth the worth the toll? Sure, it was. My our quality of life has increased significantly. And my stress about how how are we going to live paycheck to paycheck. Some of those stressors that existed prior to no longer exist. Now I just deal with the things that I can control. Hey, is my reach too much this week? Am I digging in on some of these issues that are just really ticking me off? Can I just give this up and go play Xbox for a while instead? And the answer is yes to all that. But I'm to the point now where I can take some control of that, versus before it was trying to be seen by whatever means necessary. Now I get to kind of be seen on my own terms. Once again, this is an industry where once you're in the door, you're in the door. So I'm in the door now. I can kind of step back and take my time, take it easy on myself.
Yeah, but you're getting all the recruiters messaging you now because you've got experience, and that's just how it works.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
every couple of weeks I get like a wave of like 10 or 15 of them all at once, and you can tell the ones that try to pay attention. Hey, I know a guy from that I've been friends with from some time, another Army veteran. He's he's an information security director for his company, and he's the kind of person who reaches out and says, "What would it take for you to leave your company and come work for me?" Those are well thought out recruitment and headhunting opportunities. Then you've got the other ones that are literally just they've typed OSCP in, they've got copy and paste handy, and they're just copying and pasting the same poorly written, grammatically incorrect 3 sentences and telling you that tell me when you can call, because all they're doing is trying to meet a numbers quota or whatever it is.
Well, I've got a fantastic opportunity for you. You've got to get in touch.
Yeah,
using all these superlatives.
And they'll never get back to you when you say, "Hey, I would like to know more about the position first. I don't want to just hop on a call that I know is going to go nowhere." If you're really interested, answer me. Tell me what this is about so that we can, see if it's a benefit for me. Because again, you're a recruiter. I didn't solicit you. I didn't want to talk to you, so you're coming to me wanting me to do something for you at that point. And the best recruiters like you're there hoping not only to get people to respond to you, but also people to contact you first and to see if you have any opportunities. LinkedIn has become so difficult with just the nonstop solicitation. Again, right here, not open to solicitations or recruiting doesn't stop anything. These people don't stop, trying, and it's the impersonal, same kind of messages I get from people wanting to connect. I'll never remember who those people are because they didn't make an impact.
Yeah, it's exactly the same when you have a company will say, "We don't use recruiters." We'll still call them.
Yeah,
it doesn't stop them. It does not stop them in the slightest. But, and I get people add me who don't message me as well. And like often, I'll have like in the day, I'll have 10 people add me. I'll try and contact them all because I'm assuming they want work, but I might forget one or two. And then suddenly that person's forgotten forever. And it's like, you don't know why they contacted you. They don't know why they added you. So if you add a recruiter, message them as well. Just say, "Hey, just want to network. Just want to see what jobs you've got. If you just want to look at the adverts that they're putting out or something, but just tell them why you're there and they will remember you better." Because when I'm phoning clients, I've got a list of names in my head of people who are active, who are good, who I won't say their names, but I'll be saying their skill sets to the client. And the client will say, "Yeah, I want to interview those people."
Yep.
So just make sure if you're dealing with a recruiter, could be one, could be two, could be multiple, but just tell them, "Have you got my back? This is what I do. can you contact your clients on my behalf? And they will do it for you because they'll get some money for it.
And it
makes sense for them.
And I don't think it's unreasonable or disrespectful to ask the recruiter what their motivation or intention is for the contact either. Is it simply because they're trying to hit their goal for the month? Is it because they've got a client who legitimately wants them to hire, or they find a position they think they can try to recruit into? Recruiting is a two-way street. Military recruiting is a two-way street. The recruiting you do is a two-way street. And a lot of times, just from personal experience with dealing with, almost fall into the desperation of responding to all of them that I could, it was literally a one-way street. It was all for them. I never found any ounce of inherent benefit that might show up for me. It was always, I need you to contact me. I need you to call. I need you to call. I need you to call. Well, I just want to ask a question. Well, I need you to call and talk to me. The longer you hear those responses, the more it tells you what the motivators are. And it might not necessarily be that this person wants to offer me work. It might just simply
the
be
KPI.
They've got to hit the KPI. They've got to hit those numbers for the month. And that's why I stopped responding to them. There was never any benefit for me in those unsolicited requests or contacts saying, hey, we want to talk to you. Do you have 30 minutes for a phone call? Well, do you have 2 minutes to answer a question? And it always turned into well, you need to call and talk. Find the recruiters that are good. They're out there. Paul, you're probably the best one I know. And I interviewed
on Discord.
And I interviewed with one other company because of a recruiter last September, who saw something I posted and said, hey, I've got this thing going. Would you consider, this is what it's about, and I'm doing this work for them. And that best pen tester I know that I talked about earlier actually ended up getting hired with them eventually. So, those kind of opportunities I think are great. The unsolicited preying on people kind of recruiting is just a scourge, and I really wish platforms like LinkedIn would do something about it, because it just takes advantage of people. So the message here is be careful of who is sending you those messages, and do your homework. Again, it's always going to come back to figure out who you're talking to first. Is this somebody who's going to benefit you? You're on LinkedIn to benefit yourself. Be smart about that benefit.
I think that's pretty much all I've got in my head to talk about.
Sure.
Do you want to do an Ask Me Anything quickly for 5 minutes, or do you not have time?
No, I can. If you want to do it,
okay.
If you want to do it with the recording, or if you want to do it after the recording, we can.
We can do it with recording, and then
that'd be fun. So if anybody has questions in the channel, I'm going to go ahead and hit the unmute buttons on you guys, so you guys have the ability to talk. Just go ahead and send a message in the voice text really quick that you want to talk, and I'll just call on you, and we'll give you a second to ask a question, and we'll try to rotate as many as we can in the next few minutes. Yeah, it's recorded. I'll get the as soon as I'm done, I'll send Paul here a link. He can grab it off my Google Drive, and then he can do his podcast with it.
Do some editing.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Hacks Guy. Appreciate y'all being here. So yeah, if you guys have any questions about anything, just go ahead and throw your name up in the voice text really quick, and we'll try to get to it. Sure, Mike, what's up? You can ask in voice, or you can type it out if you want.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Can hear you fine.
Cool. So, along the lines of what you guys are saying, I've been networking. I've been trying Glory Shark and Synac Reset all day have actually been sending me job offers, like things that have been coming up as well. That's not so much networking, more as, hey, this is an opening, but it's nice. Someone like me, I currently clean pools in Southern California. I know people in the industry, but that's kind of limited. I'm going for my OSCP for a third time now. I have the EJPT. I'm June 27th. I'm getting my bachelor's for cybersecurity itself. Someone like me who's trying, who is putting themselves out there, what more can I do?
Have you ever leveraged your pool clients? I know that professionally it seems like a questionable decision, but being as you clean pools, some of your clients are probably, might be executives. They might be mid to higher level management. They might just simply work in the IT field. Have you ever been able to even, through conversation or else identify if any of those clients or customers you have are in the field and try to leverage those connections. Because again, networking goes beyond just who you can find online or who you might know works directly in an office. One of those clients, you've showed me pictures of how they treat you, leaving you gifts and whatnot, and messages. These people appreciate who you are and what you do for them. You provide them, a cash service. Consider if any of those people are somebody you might be able to leverage. I know that it's hard to ask folks for help sometimes, but there's no shame.
If you don't ask, you don't get at the end of the day.
There's no shame in doing so. And being as you deal directly or somewhat indirectly with people in their homes, for in their backyards, on their personal property, they trust you to some extent. Don't be afraid to leverage those professional connections. Those are professional connections.
Yeah, I was planning on doing something similar to that as I got closer to actually selling it, because the fear is some of them might drop me saying, "Oh, you're not going to be cleaning my pool much longer anyway. I'll look for someone else."
I think that might
happened to me.
It has happened?
Yeah, that has happened to me once before. As I told someone, I just kind of went back to school thinking about trying to do something to better myself.
So
and
I don't think that's an issue with you. That's obviously the client. You work in
right.
business. You can't make everybody happy. In the end, though, those are still professional opportunities. Those are people who you might feel comfortable calling once you've sold your business, calling and saying, "Hey, would you mind if I used you as a job reference?" And those are things as a business owner you sometimes have to do if you move out of your industry and try to get work somewhere else. So if you have connections that you would be comfortable asking for recommendations, character references or professional references, consider that those are the same kind of people that you could ask for. Hey, you work with computers, you work down in wherever. Do you know anybody in this field? Leverage those connections.
I know what they do as well. A lot of the money these days are held with IT pros, so they're going to be people with swimming pools. So just ask what they do.
Yeah.
If they're an artist, then they probably don't have the connections you want. But if they are an IT manager, that straight away is someone who's going to have connections in this infosec world, or you'd hope they do. So their IT is going to be terrible.
And again,
but just ask what they do.
It puts you out there a bit, like I talked about. It's tough to want to be seen or want to feel like you're putting your neck on the line. And like you said, you lost a customer because you want to improve yourself. So that risk is always there, kind of hanging over your head with a level of fear.
It depends how you word it. I mean, there's a general rule of thumb. People love talking about themselves, so make it about them. Just say, "Oh, just curious, what is it you do?" Get with it. And then if they are in IT, then you can sort of branch out and say, "Oh, I really want to get into that field myself." Yeah, and that they will probably help you if they, if you've got a good relationship, like you said you have. They'll probably help you. If they don't help you, they're probably someone weird. You wouldn't want to work with anyway.
California.
Hey, is that Jay I see in here, or did he just leave? He just left. No, there he is. Jay, how you doing, man?
Hey, Jay.
Don't know if he's got the microphone on.
It might still be muted. JJ?
Yeah, Plaid Pest here. If you have a question, you're more than happy to ask.
Thank you. And thank you for this conversation. It's the first time I've been able to hear either one of you talk. I caught it in a Discord announcement earlier this morning. One of the things I'm dealing with is I made a transition from the over to infosec, more on the blue team side. And I thought it was going to be a great grass is greener kind of thing, or sorry, it was a grass is greener kind of thing. Come to find that my small company that didn't do infosec is about the same as this big company that does. And I feel like how do you know when to make a transition and when the learning that you're getting on the job side is worth the more with less kind of mentality that's in some of these companies?
Well, I think that there's a lot going on there. So transitions are, and I think everybody agrees, transitions are always riddled with risk, right? You're going from something you know to something you don't necessarily know. Uh, you currently do something you can stomach or live with versus take a risk and then find that the job security or the security you had already is no longer there. So for me, it comes with a lot of soul searching and trying to figure out what exactly it is you're chasing or after. And then there's different ways you can do it. You can just write a pros and cons list. You can um, speak with other people and see what their perspectives are. Ask around. Certainly if you're working somewhere, somebody there has transitioned in a similar way at some point. Naturally, talk about it at work brings up issues of, hey, this person's going to leave, or they may not be here anymore, and that always kind of twists people's stomachs. But um, really, if I'm answering your question correctly, which I hope I'm doing, it's that you just really just have to weigh the benefits versus the risk, and just kind of internalize what's going to be better for you in the long run should everything pan out and succeed, as well as understanding what you might lose if it doesn't. Hopefully that kind of answers your question. And Paul might have something else.
It's not something that we can answer for you. It's something you have to make up your own mind about. Can I do this? Can I change my job? Can I change my career into something I don't know? And like Joe said, you've just got to weigh it up. What's the risk? Have I got family to look after? Have you got any money in the bank that you can fall back on if it doesn't work out? These are all things you'd take into consideration, of course, but ultimately it's not something we can answer for you. Like, just change your job. It's something you have to work out for yourself. One thing I would say, something I get asked a lot is people often tell me how old they are. Like, oh, I'm in my late 30s. Is it too late to change? It's never too late to break in. Yeah, you can be 50 years old, 60 years old. If you got the passion, you can still get there. So I wouldn't say age is the blocker, but obviously people have their own personal circumstances. That can sometimes be a blocker. So you just got to weigh it up yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if I framed it as well as I could have, and I do appreciate what you guys talked about, and that definitely, there's no way that you can answer whether someone should make the jump. I have made the jump, and I've been in infosec or in title infosec for 2 years. Just seeing at least the current company that I'm with, lots of attrition. I keep looking at it going, oh, I need to have.
And we were talking about earlier, if you've got a company and you're not sure and you've got infosec experience, you should be fine. Obviously, it depends on the area. Some areas there might only be one infosec company, in which case it's a bit awkward. But if you're in a city, likely there's going to be competitors. If you're not happy where you are, then why stay there?
Is the attrition issue? I mean, is it an issue of people coming and going? Is it an issue of layoffs because of revenue? I mean, I guess those are additional things that would have to be asked, I guess.
Yeah, it is not. It's mostly people leaving the company.
People just leaving. So yeah, I mean, it could be that none of those people were a good fit, and you're still there because you are. I would always recommend, though, there's nothing wrong with looking at other opportunities and jobs. There's nothing wrong with it, and I would honestly fault people if they're not looking for better opportunities all the time. It does go back to the comfortability. Yeah, I know that I've got a job and it currently pays the bills, but you're expressing concern and fear or just concerned that, hey, attrition's bad. We keep hiring people and they keep leaving a few months later. Uh, there's different things you can do. You could try to move into a management perspective or a management position within your company if there is one, and try to address the attrition. Why are these people leaving? Is it because we don't pay enough? Is it because our managers are jerks? Is it because our benefits aren't okay? Or we can't keep up because maybe we're a smaller company and the bigger place down the road does a better job. So again, when it comes to attrition, if you can address the attrition because you're in a management position or you're a decision maker, that's the best way, is to address and take inventory on what's causing the issue. If you're just a regular employee, you don't have supervisor or management position or authority, ask yourself why you're still there and everybody else is leaving, and see if that's a motivator. Yeah, there's a reason.
Those all make sense for that, and I've taken from everyone else's questions. So thank you.
Oh, okay. Hey, Hacker, what's up? Your turn.
Paul, as a hiring manager, are there any specific requirements that you'll notice like a lot of applicants are missing? I imagine that certain things just aren't checked off on most boxes.
I mean, I tend to see a lot of people from overseas apply, and obviously they're missing the visa requirement. That seems to be the majority. I don't tend to get many advert responses for the roles I put out. To be truthful, most of my placements this month have been via headhunts, as it happens. I've made 3 this month, and they've all been headhunts. So in terms of, to answer your question, I mean, usually it's down to location more than actual what they've done. Most of the applicants I get have OSCP or they have equivalent of OSCP. They might have some experience. They might have done some things. So there's nothing missing really. But it's just they're just not in the right country.
What makes someone attractive for a headhunt? Seniority?
So how we'd go about headhunting. So a company would tell me to find a pen tester with, let's say, for example, OSCP based in this area, let's say Georgia, for example. So basically I'd advertise a course, see if I can get anyone through adverts, and then I'll be doing what people have been doing to Joe. I'll be trying to message them to say, hey, got an opportunity just down the road from you. What do you think? That's how headhunting works.
Thanks.
What you'll find is that if you're a junior, you won't get anyone trying to headhunt you. Unfortunately, that's just how it works, because no one is looking for juniors. They're all looking for people with 20 years experience, 10 Olympic medals, and what have you.
So that's just the nature of the beast. Respond to the adverts.
Yeah, apply to the adverts. I mean, I don't know how it is. I'm assuming you're American from your accent. I don't know how it is in the States at the moment. I tend to focus more on the UK. And the UK, we've reached the point where they can't find anyone with about a year's experience now. There's just no one on the market. And that's what people are wanting. So I'm hoping that with the lockdown ending, they will be taking on juniors again. But you might find something similar in the States happening very soon. I'm hoping for you guys.
I hope
where
so
they'll
too.
start hiring juniors.
We're still on the 10 to 1 million years experience needed.
12 years.
It still happens in the UK. Yeah, I still get asked to find, but then they usually for specific requirements that you actually need that. You can't get around it. So. All
right, we got a couple questions left, and I got to take off. I got some stuff to do, so.
Me too.
We'll wrap the last few up. Really quick, Fromaster asks, I have a question. I have taken Cybermentor's bundle course, and I'm in the middle of Tiberius' courses. Have no certs. Well, what would be a good cert to start with? So I get asked about certifications a lot. My recommendation to everybody, and we'll just kind of make it a generalized recommendation, is to look geographically where you're looking to get hired at. Because if you go to Google and you Google SOC job requirements, it's going to spit out either a whole lot of things or like a couple things. Security Plus is going to be on there. You might see sites that are CASP or any of these certifications. You might see OSCP on there for some reason. The problem is that that search does not address the needs or the requirements of the jobs in your area. So you have got to do your homework geographically. So if you looking at myself, you live in Northwest Ohio and you want to work in Toledo, it wouldn't make sense for you to search for SOC job requirements in the United States. It would make sense for you to look at job requirements for SOC analyst in Toledo, Ohio, because you're going to find as you look for positions within this industry in general, it's very almost tribal and it's very much geographical based. If the people who came up in the field 20 years ago went for one certification, or they came up 10 years ago and they all had one certification, it's likely that that one certification or that group of certs is going to be what's required. So if you have SSCP from ISC squared, but the place you're trying to work is in an SSCP house, or they don't know who ISC squared is, it does you no good to pursue or earn that certificate in your geographical area. So for everybody here, and I'm sure Paul's got a little bit to add, but for everybody here, from my perspective, look in your area that you want to work for what's required in that area. Don't look in Florida for what you want to do in Maine. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, and if you're outside of the US, often if you type in requirements for pen testing, it will come up with US requirements. Obviously, the UK were a bit different, and I know India is different again. So just, look at your local things. I mean, there's a classic one. CEH is a bit of a meme, especially in the UK, and I think a little bit in the States as well, where it's just ridiculed. But if you look at, say, India, it's actually a solid requirement.
Yeah, everybody has to have it in India. I mean, it's you can't get out of it without it. I mean, you have to have it.
So
geography is the biggest indicator of what certificates you should pursue next, Romaster. I know that doesn't answer specifically, and a lot of people want specifics, but it does require just a little bit of homework and research. And really, it's going to save you money in the long run if you target what you need for your geography versus what the industry says across an entire nation. Different members of the community have graciously offered to look at my resume. I found resume building to be the 8th layer of hell, as most other people. Do you have recommendations on where to start to build a top resume or resource?
I can recommend my Discord channel. If you post your resume on there, we will roast it for you, and we will take pleasure in doing it.
And Paul will share his Discord channel here in the voice text here in a moment. Other people looking at your resume is a great opportunity hacks guide for folks to look at it, give you advice. But keep in mind, everybody's had kind of their own positive and negative experiences with resumes. Some people say keep it to 1 page short. Some people say 2 pages max. There's different kinds of resumes. There's functional resumes, there's educational resumes and experience resumes, and all kinds of different types of resumes.
And CVs, some people call it CVs.
Yeah, exactly. So really, it's one of those things where getting it in front of more people who can give you critique or suggestions or advice to be able to help you with that. I would say until you've done that, there's a lot of people who will charge you a couple $100 to write a resume. I would say probably stay away from that. There's enough people around with knowledge and expertise in this to help you out. So, but hop on Paul's Discord.
Just remember, if you put your resume on there, take your name off, take your contact details off. Don't dox yourself, basically. But yeah, they will roast it for you.
And don't take that as a negative. The point is to help. So, okay. Tim Tom says actively interviewing around 2 folks a week. We have no certain requirements or experience minimums, but no one appears to know how to think critically. Just answer trivia. How far poisoned is the pool of candidates thinking get cert, then this, get job, that they're misguided and it's harming the industry? Where did all this guidance come from to begin with, and how to cut off that bad influence? And for those who don't measure up technically, evaluating ability to learn and adapt is difficult in 40 minutes. Curious on Paul's thought on the last one.
So in terms of the last one, I know, yeah, obviously it's difficult to measure up technically or how to assess someone in 40 minutes. It's going back to maybe creating your own lab that people can do, and then you can add in all sorts of weird and wonderful things. One thing and another thing I found with technical interviews, so people might know how to do something, but they might not know how it's called. What it's called is something I found particularly with developers. Like they'll know how to do something, but they won't know what it's called, what they're doing. So when they're asked, how do you do, I don't know, something in Python? How do you do this in Python? They won't know how to answer. If you sat them down in front of a computer, they will know what to do. Quite hard to evaluate. I'd recommend you doing your own labs. It's probably the only way around that. In terms of like how the mentality of pushing people to get certs, going back to what we said right at the beginning, it is something that's sort of pushed by HR teams in a way because it's a lot easier to search for people. You know, if you ask someone to find a pen tester for you, they're going to be like, what's the main cert? All right, it's OSCP. Right, let's type in OSCP onto LinkedIn because it's easy. It's a 4-letter word. Right, there's loads of people. We'll just contact them. They won't look at anyone else. And I've talked about it with someone on my server a lot, particularly with OSCP, but with other certs. They're very samey, and often if you get like 10 candidates with OSCP, they're going to be similar. They're not going to be thinking differently to each other. And that's where you've got to think outside the box, and you've got to tell whoever your recruiter is, whoever HR is, or whoever's picking up the candidates for you, right, OSCP is nice, but we need to find someone with this sort of mindset, or we need to be flexible on this area so that, you know, you attract those people.
Tom, can I ask what just vaguely, what type of positions you're interviewing for?
Yeah, I'm actually interviewing for security researchers, and what I'm finding really prevalent is like pretty much everybody I'm interviewing has 10 plus years experience, and they've got like 8 plus certifications, but they just haven't figured out a mindset that we're looking for, somebody who can really analyze something and understands how to break something apart and really learn.
So
What sort of backgrounds have they got, if I might ask?
And are you talking like malware or what kind of research?
Oh, everything. Like I'm hiring for all the different positions, and a lot of these folks just seem completely lost. Like I actually go through all the different domains of cybersecurity in the interview, and I try to get a sense for, like, I even tell them up front, you don't have to know every answer to every question I ask today. Like I just want to figure out where you are level wise in each area, and then it ends up turning out where they can barely get like beyond scratching the surface of like a single category, you know, because they try to answer just like trivia type questions and whatnot.
So getting past trivia is tough, right? Because we do live in a multiple choice world. Just in the interest of getting to the last couple questions quick, one of the recommendations it would make to you is if it's security research that you're doing, have you have application prereqs, you've got experience, you've got certification, you know, general expectations, but require submission of some sort. If you're doing security research and say, you know, something you're researching is, you know, you have to identify a malware threat or something that's going on, in a current trend, or even you provide them, you know, a piece of malware that's not going to destroy their computer, turn into a virus, but something you've developed internally that, you know, they can assess, they can break down, they can do malware assessment on. And just speaking in generalities, you really apply this to anything. But give them something that has to show some amount of technical acumen. So if you've got issues with them not being able to show technicality, put something technical in front of them before before you get to the interview phase. I don't really like the concept of weeding people out. I still like being able to train folks, but what you're going to do with technical assessments, in addition to regular job application processes, is see what their mindset actually is. You're going to get people who refuse to submit that application because they don't want the labor pains. They just want the baby, right? They want to get to the interview and be able to try to talk a good game. But if you put something technically required in front of them that is comparable to what you're going to expect from them on the job, I think that would give you maybe a better insight into into that, because again, not everybody does great at interviewing. Some people just suck at interviews, but they might be technically proficient.
Right.
It is nerve-wracking, isn't it?
It is. It's incredibly nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the main things. We were trying to avoid like giving people homework, and also we didn't want to stigmatize the or scare away anybody who's too junior to solve those problems, but maybe they do have the mindset for breaking things apart and for research in general, but they just haven't been trained on it. So
maybe as a way around that, you could actually style the interview. So instead of giving them homework, like you said, like, go away, do this lab, maybe like the interview, bring them in or get them to share their screen and get them to talk you through what they're doing. So give them a piece of malware, like Joe said, to sort out, and then just say, right, talk me through what you're doing. And that could be your interview process, because you'll be able to see live what they're doing. Because the risk with homework is always, they go and get their mate to do it,
or they just don't do it because they don't want the work ahead of time.
Yeah, right. And some people, we have lives, like wives, husbands, kids, things like that. And sometimes you just don't have time to do it when you're working a full-time job as well. So we were trying to avoid that kind of a thing. But that's not a bad idea, having them kind of like walk through a process itself. Because I usually do scenario-based. Where I'll be like, here, these are the conditions, like walk me through your thought process, and it's fine if it's not correct. Just like give me an idea as to how you think.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of different ways we can do it.
Yeah, you just want to see how their mind works more sometimes as well, especially with these roles. Is how does your mind work when you're doing this job? What's your thought process behind it? And that's the sort of things you want to. You can see that when you've got a technical piece in front of them and they're working their way through it. So that might be a solution to your problem.
Yep.
I hope.
All right,
okay, one last one here with Tin, and then I've got to run. What would be the best way to build up your network? LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and what should be the right age to start with building up your network? Currently, I'm 16. I'm not sure if I should start making blogs and videos or should I wait. So a couple things there. Tin, first and foremost, we still live under the responsibility of your guardian or your parents. You want to make sure that whatever you're doing, you've got permission to do. So when it comes to networking, blogs, videos, just make sure that you've got them in your corner and that they're supporting you. Additionally, when you're 16, you have a whole lot of people, or you could have a whole lot of people around you who are going to be your biggest cheerleaders and supporters. You've got teachers and instructors and counselors and parents and grandparents maybe, and aunts and uncles and all these different people who already are your network. You've got a large network at 16, far larger than when you walk into the adult world all on your own. So use those opportunities that you have to start building those connections. Again, I'm not sure if you're in the United States or elsewhere. In the United States, schools will have like guidance counselors or job counselors who can help point you in the right direction towards success in one way or another. Sometimes they're good at it, sometimes they're really bad at it, but those people exist. Additionally, you've got teachers. When I was in high school, we had 8 periods a day. Those are 8 different, adult, educated individuals and professionals that I was dealing with on a daily basis. So make those connections. Be that student that stands out. Be that student that, is approachable and is respectful, and who, when they talk to a teacher or one of the adults at school or their parents or whoever, they're going to listen and want to help you. But again, make sure that your parents are on in your corner, that they're supporting what you're doing, because that's going to be vital. And don't be afraid to leverage those school connections that you have. That's what teachers are there for. They're there to help set you up for success. Make sure that they're getting their, make sure you're getting your money's worth, basically, and that you're benefiting from them as much as you can. As for LinkedIn and YouTube and stuff, at 16, obviously, it's kind of difficult because, again, it's up to your parents. So I'm not sure if LinkedIn has an age requirement. Do you, Paul? Is it 18?
I know Facebook does, doesn't it? So
obviously pay attention to the rules. When you're younger, just make sure your parents back you before you you start doing anything. I don't want to give too much advice, and your parents say absolutely not. So I would have a good conversation with them, and then build that professional network, starting with the professionals you have in your life 5 days a week, your teachers. Alrighty, that's all I have time for, Paul. I apologize. I got to take off.
Fine. Thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
so
yeah, hopefully we can do it again soon.
I hope so. So everybody who's here in the Discord, thank you guys so much for coming to hang out. Paul, thank you for having me as well. I'm going to go ahead and hit the record button now.
Thank you, guys.